First tonight, former Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson has arrived back at his property near Gunnedah, a day after handing over the Nationals' leadership. After 9 years in Cabinet, he's looking forward to a slower pace.
A world away from Canberra, John Anderson has touched down on his northwest farm following a whirlwind leadership handover, from talking politics to talking about the weather.
When's it going to rain?
Tomorrow, I suspect.
It's a novelty to be home with his wife Julia on a weekday, but after 17 years in politics and 9 as a minister, he was ready to let go.
It has been very tough. It's very demanding. I've made my decision and I won't be looking back.
Smokey, here, come on. That's better.
He'll concentrate now on being in the Gwyder electorate more often and being home a little more with his wife and 4 children.
I'd have to say my John has been the most reluctant politician. I think he's been trying to get out since the day he went in.
Reluctant may be, but in that time he's proud of his party's achievements, most of all the National Water Initiative. Now though, there's some time to relax in Parliament's winter break.
I will be home more. I sleep in my own bed at night more than I have been now for some 13, 14 years, and I'm certainly very appreciative of that.
The next time John Anderson returns to Canberra, it'll be just as the member for Gwyder. But before then, he's promised his wife a holiday for a few weeks, rather than the few days that they're normally used to. The MP will decide sometime before the next election if he wants to contest his seat again. Near Malali, Josh Murphy, Prime News.
As the world reels with the shock of the London terrorist bombings, it's raised concerns about security closer to home. The blasts in London came seemingly out of the blue. Hundreds of people have been injured and the death toll is rising. It's made our own leaders take another look at where Australia's weaknesses could lie.
I think we've got to take the account of regional centres, the vulnerability of regional centres, and focus afresh on regional airports.
But with the cost of upgrading security at the core of the problem, who takes responsibility?
Airport security is firmly a matter for the federal government, but we will look at any measure to improve security at any of our public transport modes.
There was a mass exodus of university students from Tamworth today. Business owners have criticised the behaviour of some of the 4,000 that were in town for the Eastern University Games.
Not as much. 4,000 students, 19 sports in 4 days. Today it was time to say goodbye to Tamworth.
Everyone's here, having a bit of fun, playing some sports. It was good, I liked it. The party scene was really good.
We had a wonderful time, but unfortunately one of our friends dislocated his shoulder.
Those who partied a little too hard had a chance to avoid a drink driving charge with free breath testing by Council and Rotary.
I knew I was going to drive in the morning, so I stopped drinking last night.
I will be driving later, not now, but in a while, yeah.
A police patrol car was conducting real breath tests just kilometres up the road.
One fellow come in and he was definitely not going to drive, and I don't think he should drive for about the next 2 or 3 days. He was 0.126.
Extra police were deployed this week, but no major incidents were reported.
Look, we were very happy with the behaviour of the people overall. There was 1 or 2 isolated incidents.
4 people were sent home for misconduct. Publicans welcomed the extra trade without any compromises.
Uni students obviously being out, intoxication, they had enough, went home happily. Overall, for the amount of crowd, very incident-free.
But not everyone has praised the behaviour of the students. Businesses around the CBD say they've been forced to pick up bottles, clean up bodily fluids and replace pot plants that have been ripped out every night. The Games are the second largest multi-skilled event in the country, apart from the Nationals. It generated millions for the local economy. In Tamworth, Jamie Abbott, Prime News.
Police have released the names of a man and woman, both from Sydney, who were killed in a head-on road smash south of Tamworth yesterday. 60-year-old Betty Pendergrass of Smithfield and 54-year-old Peter Wright of Yagoona were the sole occupants of the vehicles, which collided on the New England Highway shortly after 9 o'clock yesterday morning. Police believe one car may have crossed to the other side of the straight stretch of road. Investigations into the cause of the accident are continuing. Pork producers' worst fears may be realised if 2 cases of suspected post-weaning multisystemic wasting syndrome in a New South Wales and South Australian piggery are confirmed. The disease could spell the end to the Australian industry.
Until now, Australia was one of only 3 countries in the world to be free of the disease, post-weaning multisystemic wasting syndrome, otherwise known as PMWS. The 2 piggeries under suspicion have been quarantined. Local pork producers are now being encouraged not to be alarmed until test results are known.
Maintain their standards of their quarantine and don't fetch in any other pigs until we really know what's happening to the industry.
It's another blow to pork producers who only last month won the fight to ban new imported pig meat from entering Australia for fear of an outbreak of PMWS. The federal government is appealing the decision, but the industry's win may have come too little, too late.
They've been told, they've been warned, they've been asked to check it.
Even though the disease is fatal to pigs, it doesn't affect humans, and the Australian pork industry is urging people to continue to support them by buying local pork.
It is very safe. Look, for people that love their pork meat, they've got no fear or worry with the food side of it.
The possibility of the disease entering Australia has sent alarm bells ringing all over in regional New South Wales.
And I say this is a very, very big wake-up call for every rural producer in Australia. Don't matter what he produces, he must stop now and think that biosecurity is very, very low.
Results are expected in the next few days. Miranda Saunders, Prime News.
Plans for an Australian Country Music Hall of Fame were unveiled in Tamworth today. According to initial drawings, the facility will be a lot more than simply a museum.
Familiar faces and country music representatives crammed into the tiny room for the big news. A facility to showcase country music in Australia.
We've got something that nobody in Australia has got.
At this stage, the Hall of Fame carries a $12 million price tag.
We're looking at pretty well shared funding from the federal, state, local government, from the industry and from members of the public and artists through our fundraising programs.
There's no indication where it will be built, but more than likely it will be near the Regional Entertainment Centre. Organisers are confident that although the annual Country Music Festival only runs for 2 weeks, the development will be viable. So confident, in fact, they plan for it to become self-funding.
We've got lots and lots of areas where we can raise money through performances, publishing, issuing sheet music, re-releasing records, printing books, publishing books. The possibilities are just enormous.
If all goes according to plan, the Hall of Fame will be completed by January 2010. In Tamworth, Sky Harris, Prime News.
While forecasters are predicting a wetter than average winter, experts say it'll take much more than that to repair the damage of more than 3 years' drought. In the northwest, several centres enjoyed above average falls for June. Tamworth notched up more than 135 millimetres. Armidale had 90.
Some areas had nearly twice the average rainfall for that period, and out towards Moree they actually had their highest ever June rainfall, so some areas are doing quite well in that regard.
But there's a long way to go.
When you look at it at a 6-month period, it's not too bad, but when you actually look over a 3-year deficiency, there are quite serious deficiencies still. So we haven't really made, that means we really haven't made up the rain since the last El Nino in 2002, 2003.
Still to come, marching in the streets to celebrate Naidoc Week. Ashford farmer Mal Peters is preparing to farewell a job he's held for the past 4 years. He'll relinquish the presidency of the New South Wales Farmers Association, his successor appointed later this month.
It's been a tough road, but one Mal Peters has held near to his heart.
Well, I close with a great deal of satisfaction. It's been a very rewarding
experience to be able to represent farmers, and to go from a humble farmer at Ashford who didn't know a great deal to lunching with prime ministers and premiers has been a hell of a kick, I must admit.
But now he's packing his bags, his 4 years at the top drawing to a close according to the rules of the association. There have been many battles. During Mal's tenure there's been a major restructure of finances, and the association's focused on getting results. Among them, property rights through the National Water Initiative. Although with land and native vegetation, progress has come slowly. But the tough part has been walking the political tightrope.
If we lean one way or the other, we'll either get crucified federally or at a state level, so it's important to try and keep a balance in between.
But he says agriculture has to get proactive if it's to survive. The Greens have grabbed the ear of governments through increasing their profile in the city. Mal Peters says agriculture must do the same to combat their growing influence.
So they sit at the table and they have equal negotiation capability to me. So unless agriculture does the same and gets out there and makes sure they counter that, we're never going to get ahead of the pack. I mean, for every 20 fires that we put out, there'll be another 300 come over the hill at us.
The association's new president will be appointed at the annual conference in Sydney on July 19. Maxine Cooper, Prime News.
Police have recaptured a man who escaped the Glen Innes Correctional Facility. The 25-year-old inmate went missing early yesterday morning. Early this morning, police were called to the intersection of Church and Oliver Streets in Glen Innes after reports of a man lighting a fire who fitted the inmate's description. He was arrested and has been charged with escaping lawful custody and carrying a knife in a public place. Naidoc week officially runs until Sunday, and things were in full swing in Tamworth today. Young and old took their celebration to the street, the survival of Indigenous culture.
Traffic in Peel Street came to a halt today as crowds marched through Tamworth as part of Naidoc week celebrations. They began near Viaduct Park and headed through town. Among them were the young and younger. Even the tiniest member was dressed for the occasion. A police escort guided marchers safely through the city. The children filled the crowd. Adults say they understand the significance of the week.
Yes, they do. They do. They love it. The march is the culmination of Naidoc Week, the end of the week events, of celebrating the survival of our people.
They arrived at Bicentennial Park for a family day. Organisers catered for 300.
And they've got the trikes, the jumping castles, plus they've got ice creams and drinks after lunch.
Despite the food and rides, some just wanted to play footy. The celebrations continue until Sunday. In Tamworth, Sky Harris, Prime News.
The history of rail in New South Wales will be celebrated with an event in Tamworth later this year. The National Railway Heritage Conference will be held at the University of England Centre in September. It'll be opened by rail patron, former Deputy Prime Minister Tim Fischer.
This is the 150th year of rail in this state, and it's appropriate that we mark it, celebrate it and consider how we can better improve rail right across the state.
With projects like Werris Creek's National Rail Monument also marking the network's history, the Minister says it's an appropriate time to look to the future.
How important is rail to city and country New South Wales? How are we going to deal with rail heritage issues into the future? What is the future of rail?
The conference will run from the 28th to the 30th of September. Junior Hereford handlers from all over the northwest have been showing off their skills this week. The Australian Hereford Youth Club New England Division held its 19th annual junior show, which finished up today.
It's all run by youth, so under 25, and it's just mainly for the kids to have fun and learn so they can move on in the future.
There were 99 entries ranging from peewees through to the seniors. When they weren't competing the entrants, some as young as 4 years were brushing up on their farmhand skills. Time now for sport with John Hyde, and the Maggies prepare for their biggest game of the season.
Certainly do, Joe. They can't make the semi-finals, but they can still make it tough for their local rival. More when we return.